Okay, you'll notice here that the post array is empty. That's because we went directly to the URL without going through a form. So if I press here, it means that I'm not using post, I'm using get, and there's no data. How else could I run this script? Well, I could put in some data. This is a test. And I could click the post array. The post button. The first thing you'll notice is the array now has some data. The other thing you might find curious is the fact that we're at the same URL. This is the first time I've done this in this course. This page, when you post it, goes to itself. So let's see how that works. If I look in the code, you'll notice that the form has no action. Normally, our form is on an HTML page and the action goes to a PHP page. In this case, the form is on the same page as the action. We call that a postback because the data is getting posted back to itself. So now, this script can be run two different ways. We can run it by simply going directly to the URL, in which case the post array is empty, or we can run it by filling in the data. And this is a test. I'm clicking on the post button. Now, based on which way we run the script, we have to do different things. So again, let's go back to the code. First of all, I want to show you that I've done something else new here. I gave the submit button a name. I named it post. The value is what you see on the button. The name is what goes into the post array. So, in the past, I've never named a button because I didn't really care if the button was pressed or not. If the script was running, the button must have been pressed. But in this case, the script could run if I go directly or if I press the button. So it's important to know whether or not the button was pressed. Now, like I said, this script has two distinct parts. The first part up here is whether or not we need to add a new entry into the database. And the second part is outputting all the data that's currently in the database. So when do we want to do the insert? Well, we want to do the insert when the post button in the post array is set. This if verifies that the button was actually pressed. If that's the case, it's time to do an insert. So I'm going to do insert SQL equals insert into guest book TBL, and we're going to insert only into the name column and the message column. And the values, we're going to use placeholders. Question mark, comma, question mark. This table actually has four columns, but two of them have defaults. The ID is an auto, so it's a default, and the date has a default, which is current timestamp. Okay, now that we've built the HTML, it's now time to prepare it. So the insert statement is going to be equal to MySQLi prepare, and I'm going to prepare the insert SQL. Notice how helpful NetBeans is. It guesses the things I want. Now, does this SQL statement have any parameters? Yes, it does. It has two parameters. So, we want to set those parameters. So we're going to do insert statement arrow what? Bind param. Now, how many parameters do we have? We have two. And they both happen to be strings, so we'll do SS. The first one is in the post array, and it's simply called the name. You can see that by looking down here. It's called the name. The next one is also in the post array, and it's simply called message. Let me make sure this is a square bracket. Square bracket. Little finger problem. Okay, so we prepared, we did our bind. It's now time to what? It's now time to execute. Now, since this is an insert, there's no need to do a fetch, so we can simply close. So let's do insert statement, close. Now, let's go back and run this code. So this time the array is empty because I went directly. So now let's run the code. Chris, this is a test. And we'll click post. Notice we didn't see anything. The array is filled, but nothing came out down here yet because we didn't do part 2. So how can we verify the data is actually in the database? Well, let's go check. I'm going to go to administration of my database. So I'm going to go into phpMyAdmin. I'm going to go to the guest book. I'm going to go to guest book table. And we'll see that there's one piece of data. So the insert actually worked. Great. So after we insert, we display the form, but at the bottom of the form, we need to display a list of the data that's already in the table. So let's do our select SQL. And it's going to be what? Select name message, comma date from guest book TBL. And if you look at the assignment, it says to order it in descending order by date. So we'll do order by date DSC. Okay, so that's our select statement. We're going to select the name, message, and date. And you can see right here, I need the name, the message, and the date. Now, after we have our select statement, I'm going to do select statement stmnd equals, I need to do what? I need to prepare it. Again, it figured out that it's select SQL. After I prepare, in this case, do we have any parameters? Are there any question marks? No, but we have to bind what this time? Instead of binding the parameters, we now have to bind what? We have to bind the result. And the first result is name, the second result is message, and the third result is date. Remember, we have to match up the columns with the variables. So, okay, we did the prepare, we did the bind. Next is what? Select statement. We have to remember to execute. Okay. In this example, is it possible for the for us to get more than one row as the result. Yes, there could be multiple messages in the guestbook table, so we're going to do a loop. And in that loop, we're going to do a fetch on the statement. Remember, fetch returns true or false depending on whether it received data. If it returns true, it means that name, message, and date have new data. Now, I need to print out a row similar to this. Now that row is mostly HTML. So I'm going to do a little trick here, and I'm going to leave PHP, and then I'm going to go back in. So right here, I'm actually not in PHP anymore. Whoops. I'm going a little crazy here. I'm not sure where the orange came from. Okay, let's keep going anyways. So right here, I'm going to do TR, because I'm in HTML. I'm going to do TD. Now I need to print the name. How do I print the name? Well, I'm going to use the PHP short tags. Just $name. Remember, that's equivalent to doing an echo. Then I'm going to close the TD, and I'm going to open up a new one. Again, I'm going to use the short tag to print what? To print the message. And I'm going to close the TD, and I'm going to open one more TD. And this time, I'm going to use the short tag one more time to print the date. This time, I'm going to close the TD, and I have to remember to close the TR. Okay, so that's a little trick. We leave PHP, we go into HTML, we go back into PHP. Couple things left to do. Well, really just one thing left to do. I have to make sure I close the SQL statement. We already closed the database from earlier. So, let's just recap. I do my select statement, I prepare it. I bind the results, I have 3 columns, I do the execute. I then fetch as many times as I have data, spitting out a TR each time, and then finally I close things up, and then I close the HTML. So let's try it out. So notice it did dump out the entry from last time, but it didn't add a new entry. That's because we went directly to the URL. I could go directly to the URL all day, and it's only going to give me that one entry. Okay. First of all, to clean things up here, I'm going to remove this array. Okay, let's go back just to make sure it's nice and clean. And the array is gone. So now let's try entering some more data. Bob, this is another test. Now what's going to happen if I click post? The page reloads itself. Remember, it's a post back, and Bob comes out on top because we're ordering it into sending order. Remember, we said there was no error checking, so look what happens if I just click post. We get a blank entry. Obviously, that's a problem, but I didn't want to add error checking on top of the new database stuff. Okay, I hope that helped. If you have any questions, please get in touch, and I will see you this coming Thursday. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.